Welcome to Dear Romance Writer, where three writers who always deliver happily ever afters offer questionable advice for all of your relationship, work, and life problems. I'm Roan Parrish.
I'm Avery Flynn, and unfortunate for all of us in the world, Zio is not here with us this week. She is deep in the writing cave. So send her all of the good vibes. So we are super lucky though, because joining us is the amazing Garrett Leigh and her cat Daisy. So yes, Garrett, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you write.
Okay, I am a British gal, and I write generally queer romance. It's quite angsty and quite dark and quite dirty. Yeah, I live in just north of London. I've got 2 dogs, 2 kids, a husband who's free to a good home, and my wonderful cat who's asleep.
Yes, we were discussing Daisy before you came in. Daisy owns the house. No
I know.
shocker there.
I love Daisy, and I, as a big, huge, dorky Garrett Leigh fan, always think of Suri, the cat in Misfits, and I picture her just like Daisy. So
yeah, they're very similar. In fact, the cat has appeared in most books under various aliases because
the cat has a secret identity.
It does. Just
you can't nail down Daisy. Can't do it. I love that.
Yes, we so Avery and I and Zio, but she's not here, were at a Polycon this past week, and we filmed, which was great, and we filmed a live episode with 2 guests, which you'll get to see, people will get to see in the future. But it was really fun, I think, because I like watching other people's body language while they're giving advice. And I feel like we had a lot of advice givers who were like, throwing the advice at the camera, like, listen.
This is it. I'm intense and I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see our advice giving language this time. I just got out of the shower. I'm still wet. I'm disgusting. I thought today was Friday. It's cool. But our letter for this
I would love that.
Oh, I know. I thought it was Friday yesterday too. It wasn't then either, but.
Well, I knew it was Thursday because I had to go to the DMV today. So, yes, it was a good time. Highly recommend.
Do you guys have to go to, I mean, we would call it the DVLA over here. So do you have to go in person to do these things?
Well, I did, because like we made a change over here where right now you just use your driver's license as your ID, when you go take a flight. And now they've made a change with the real ID, and they postponed it because of COVID. Now it's starting up in May, and I'm old, so my license was like expiring. So this is the first time I've ever had to change it, and not because I moved somewhere. So so I had to do the real ID. So I had to go show up with my passport and all of my good stuff. Yeah,
we do it all online here. I don't think there is a DVLA where you would go.
That's lucky, I think.
Yeah,
I actually did.
Dreamy.
I renewed mine. In Philly, you have to do it. I think it's like every 5 years or something. And I renewed mine online the last 2 times because I just pretended that I still lived in the same old apartment, because I am like, I live in a city. If someone steals my bag and they have my ID with my home address and my keys, like, I'm not going to do that. And so I always put a fake address, like an old address, on my license. But this time I forgot.
So you are just admitting to lying on government forms and a recorded.
Well, listen, I'm admitting to attempting to protect myself in the eyes of a government that wants me dead, and I won't apologize.
Yeah,
but this time, like a stupid idiot, I forgot that, of course, it's my old address, so it was being mailed to me, and I got a temporary one, and I'm like, dang, government, could you be slower? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, no ID. And finally I was like, oh yeah, it probably got mailed to the address that you put on it. So I have to go find the person who lives in my old apartment and be like, hey, do you have a piece of government ID for me?
Yeah, do you mind? And hopefully they haven't sold it. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Oh.
Anyway, shall we? So now that we've like established that we're all really qualified to advise other people on how to live their lives.
Yeah, definitely.
Shall I read our question?
Yes. Give me the good stuff.
Yes. Okay. So this is from one of our readers. Thank you so much or listeners, excuse me. Thank you so much for writing in. We love hearing your questions. We can't wait to hear more of them. So, dear romance writer, sorry in advance for the length. I'm so lost right now. Me, male 39, and now husband, female to male 35, have been married for 11 years and together for 12. We have 2 wonderful children, 11 and 10, that also fall on the queer spectrum. When my husband came out as non-binary during lockdown, it was no surprise to me. When he identified as female, he was hardly, sorry, I should pause and say that I'm reading the pronouns that are in this letter. So within the last, it was no surprise to me. When he identified as female, he was hardly ever feminine, and this was nothing I ever had an issue with. He changed his name and pronouns to they, them, and things continued as usual. Within the last few months, he started tea, and he said initially it was to deepen his voice. I stayed supportive because I love him, and it still didn't bother me. Recently, he changed his pronouns again, and he's planning to get top surgery and a hysterectomy. He was never a busty person to begin with, and we're done having children. This shouldn't bother me, but it did. And I buried it because I love him and I want him to be who he really is. I've never seen him happier than he's been in the last 2 years, and it brings me so much joy. It also terrifies me, but I never voiced it. My mental health took what I thought was a regular downtick recently, and I made the proper adjustments with my doctor and medication. But the other day, it just hit me. My wife is gone and she's not coming back. I broke down hard, and my husband was there for it, and I spilled everything. How I'm scared I can't be gay enough for him, how I miss being with a woman, how I feel like a transphobe for feeling that way. It was so unfair to him to so suddenly dump it all, and I know I said more than I should have. I know he was always my husband all along, and that my wife was a mask. I know it was horrible of me to tell him I missed her. It's such a mess now. Divorce got mentioned, and then things spiraled. It's boomeranged back to us not wanting to end it, but it always comes back to the fact that it can't go on forever without one of us not being the person we really are. It feels like the stupidest thing. We love each other so much. This seems too trivial to cause so much pain. My guilt is overwhelming me. I feel like I'm falling into love with my husband. I'm failing to love my husband enough, excuse me. I feel like I'm a transphobe for feeling this way. I feel like a failure to our queer friends, and worst of all, our queer children. I feel like I'm being ugly and awful in the world I'm trying so hard to protect them in. We're getting therapy for us and the whole family. Is there any insight you could provide to help us navigate all this mess? Ron.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, Ron. Yeah, so I want to just go back up to the top mostly for myself to go over all the players again, just so we know. Okay. So the letter writer is 39, male, and
that's Ron.
That's Ron. Okay. And his husband is 35 and is a trans man. They've been married for 11 years, together for 12, and they have 2 kids. And Ron is struggling with his partner's transition. Yeah.
Right. Oh, well, first off, hug. I think, Ron, you need a hug, quite frankly. Wow. I don't know. Honestly, and I'm coming from a place of love here on all sides of things, but I don't know anyone who wouldn't be superhuman, who wouldn't have a lot of feelings brought up by this. And sometimes our feelings surprise us. Sometimes our feelings are the ones we don't want to have. That happens. So I would say, first off, it's very good. Number one, I think, even though it's probably very traumatic for everyone, sort of the way all of the feelings spread out, it is good at least that those feelings got out. So you can look at that as not completely awful, right? He sounds like he's punishing himself a lot in this. And the fact that you've got therapy going on right now is great. I think that's really good. My question was, and maybe I didn't listen close enough to the letter. Did he say they were only doing family therapy, or is he doing therapy? Are they doing couple therapy? What? Because
it looks like, it looks like we're getting therapy for us, I assume, is the couple, and for the whole family. So it sounds like not individual therapy, but couples and family. That was my read.
I would recommend also individual, because we, like in family therapy, you're always the parent in there, right? So it is really hard to be honest with some of what the stuff that you don't want to admit to, right, in front of your kids. Same thing with couples therapy, right? It's important to do, but it's also sometimes hard to admit the stuff that you don't want to admit inside. So I think it sounds to me as if Ron wants to try and work through some of this if he can. And if that is the case, then I would strongly recommend getting into a situation with a therapist where he can go on his own and thus feel safe to be 100% honest, because I don't know that he does right at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can, as a cis person, I can only answer it as a human. In our family, my stepson is trans, and I know my husband as a father went through it was quite a brief period, but where he missed his daughter. He loved his son so much, and he's just this wonderful, lovely young man. But there was a part of him that he felt very guilty about missing the daughter he'd had for the 18 years leading up to this point. So I think it's a common phenomenon for this kind of feeling of loss. But what I would say is no feeling is permanent. How you feel now and how we all feel now, you're not the same person every day you wake up. And I think expressing how he felt was probably the best thing he could have done, however painful and horrific it was, because keeping those feelings in, you breed new ones, don't you? You have resentment and frustration, and it's just,
and so much shame.
Yeah, so much shame. And that's what I got from Ron's letter, is he's ashamed of himself for a very natural and human feeling that actually his husband will understand, especially as time goes on and you process and digest. But what I also would say is that letter, for the first 2/3 of it at least, it was all about love.
Mm-hmm.
It was all, I love this person, I still love this person, I want to love this person, I love our life. I'm just processing a massive change, because when someone transitions, it's not just them that transitions, everybody transitions. And however supportive those people are and however much they love you, it's still a journey. And I think for Ron, he's just at the point in his journey where he's got to do his own self-discovery, his own self-care, and rather than looking outwards at what's happening, look inwards and try and find your way out of there. And I think what Avery said about therapy just for Ron, I think is really good advice.
Yeah, I really agree with both of you. I do think individual therapy is great because sometimes there are things that you don't even know that you feel until you hear yourself say them out of the context. I've had this in therapy, I've had this feeling with friends where I've heard myself say something that I've never said to the person that I feel it about. And I'm like, wait, is that true? Yes. Oh, fuck, that is true. And it's like, sometimes you don't even know until you go through saying it. And sometimes you can't get yourself there. You need to be asked questions in a way that's like different enough than the way you ordinarily think, that it catalyzes like a new mode of thinking. So I think individual therapy is great. I also think that, Garrett, what you said is so, I totally agree with, is like, it doesn't make you transphobic to miss a person that you love. It doesn't make you transphobic to like go through a mourning process about like something that you thought that you had, a life you thought you would have. None of those things, none of the feelings that you're having make you transphobic, Ron. What would make you transphobic is if you hated trans people or thought that they deserved to die or were prejudiced against them, like those things, I would say.
Or immediately rejected your spouse because of,
right.
like out of hand, like completely and utterly.
Yeah, but I do think it's not super useful to use like the language of the people who are way far away from you when you feel like you're just on the kind of on the very edge. It's not generous to yourself. And honestly, it's like, I don't think you're trying to do this, but I think if you're going into a conversation being like, I feel like I'm transphobic, you're making that about your fear and your shame. And those Like shame to me is the most singularly useless emotion. It never causes change for the better. In fact, it rarely causes change at all. It usually is this like stagnation and like, I suck, I'm not worth anything, so why would I bother? You know, like I think it's super, super unuseful to bring into the conversation.
Like a rock.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think of shame as almost like a gateway feeling. It's like, it's like that whole thing, that a cheating partner, that the cheating is just a symptom of other things that are wrong in a relationship, right? So to me, shame is sort of like that little, hey, something is going on that's not matching either what I want to present or what I internally feel or all those things. So it to me, shame is like showing
There's a symptom.
there's something up, right?
Yeah,
But yeah,
true.
but living with it though is yeah, it's kind of hard. And it sounds to me from Ron's letter that he is a very caregiving type person, right? And so the prism that he seems to be looking at this, the perspective that he seems to be having on this is all based in how he is failing the people that he loves. And it sounds to me like that is probably pretty much the worst thing to him that he could do, right, is to fail the people that he loves. But I would say also though that he needs to remember to love himself as much as he is loving the other people in his life and give himself some slack.
I mean, the only comparison that occurs to me is when my children are teenagers now. One of them's 19, one of them's 14. I love them most of the time, but it doesn't stop me missing them the way they were when they were small. But it doesn't mean that I want toddlers back,
right,
either, so that's the only comparison I could think of to make.
Yeah.
Well, I've got an old dog now. I miss her when she was a puppy, but I wouldn't want her to be a puppy again, because fuck me, the mess.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, that like having an appreciation for, or like a love of who you and another person or animal or were in your life, like that's not the same as wanting to control that person by making them something that they're not. And I think like I am so, I mean, I myself, like I'm pansexual. I do not care what gender someone is. That's never mattered to me. But also like some people are heterosexual. Like it's a truly terrible truth, but like some people are 100% heterosexual, and I'm so sorry, but like it's just true. And if you are like that, I don't mean to like love is love. I don't mean to be all like flippant about it, but like it is possible that if you are not gay, then being married to a man is not actually going to work out for you long term. And I think that no matter how much you love someone, there are deal breakers that come about that like neither part of that couple wants to be true. Like if you love each other so much, but one person wants kids and the other one hates them. You love each other so much, but one of you wants to live in the city and have a party life, and the other wants to live in the country and be like a trapper. There are just like things that you can't overcome in a relationship. And if
only you would come up with a trapper. I'm sorry. It's hilarious. But I get your point, and you make a really it's a very important point, and I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, and I just think that like it is super important to try as hard as you can for the people you love. But the only way that you can actually love someone the way they deserve to be loved is if you are loving them as yourself. And if you are not gay and your husband is a man, like you can love him with your whole heart, and you can want him to be happy, and you can wish that you were attracted to men, but you might not be. And you don't say what your sexual orientation is in this letter, and it's none of our business. But like, I do think one of the things that would be so great about going to therapy on your own is actually working through like, am I attracted to men? And if not, maybe am I attracted to only this man because we have a history? Maybe like you could come up to whatever conclusion, who knows? But I do think that it's not doing anyone any good to just like dispense with that possibility off the bat just because you love each other.
It's so important to have the really difficult conversations.
And that is a really difficult conversation. Yeah. Well, and I would also look to, marriage can be a bunch of different things, right? And the marriage you had is not coming back, obviously. So I think you're Ron, if you also look at it from the perspective of saying, okay, this is what it was, let's figure out together what it's going to be moving forward, right? If it does fit within, something that you want, that you decide that you want to be a part of, well, then that comes to figuring out together, what is marriage going to mean to us? Because it may be something completely different than what it meant before. And if it's absolutely amazing in 90% of it, but it's that 10% that you need to find a different way of handling or an outlet or whatever it may be, that's something to figure out together.
Marriage is such a journey.
Oh my God.
When it goes according to the plan you think you wanted, you've got a whole lifetime to be together. And when we said earlier, you're not the same person every day of the week. You're not the same person from one year to the next either. So how you feel now, in a year's time, and think about how you felt a year ago. If you couldn't even contemplate going to the point where you were being married to a man, now you are. How you feel about it now, it's a journey. It will change. You'll come in and out of things, and you just don't know where you're going to settle. So don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions.
I think that's
and allow yourself to have that time, and allow yourself to have these periods where you're not happy. You have to allow yourself to be unhappy, or you'll never get through that cycle. If you're constantly fighting being unhappy or being uncomfortable, you're never going to get to the other side of it if you avoid it at the other end.
I think that's so important, and I think it's also something that you model for your children, that they then gain that ability. And I know that, Ron, you talk about like feeling like you're the bad in the world that you're trying to protect your kids from. And I would just really disagree with you, actually. I think that modeling for your kids that love is one of the most important things, but that it's not a panacea. Like, it doesn't just cure differences. It doesn't just cure disagreements. Like, these are things that love includes, not things that they protect you from. And I think that if you decide that you're not gay, if you and your husband decide that this is not going to work out, like living together or whatever, what you will have modeled for your kids is that you can love someone with your whole heart and still like make responsible choices that protect them from the lack of love you can give them.
I do think it's important for your children to see you fail in life, generally anyway, because otherwise, they grow up to think that they can't fail.
Yes.
Right.
And if you put yourself up on this pedestal anyway, the only way is down.
Yeah.
You just have to let them see it. Let them see it all. I mean, I'm probably a little bit too open with my children. They'll probably tell you they know far too much. But I think it's better that than to give you a nasty shock when you're 25. You have to go out into the world knowing that these people are out there and that things are hard. Things don't always go your way. And yet your parents sometimes fuck everything up because they're as human as you are. And because your parents have done it, it's all right for you to fuck it all up as well.
Right.
That's life. That's life. We all fuck it all up at some point, and it's okay to do that. You have to allow yourself to do that, and you have to allow other people to see you doing that too.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh. So we've talked a lot about the fact that that relationships change and that things are difficult, even under like the circumstances you expect, as Garrett put it. And as authors, we're always writing about, sort of how people change. Hopefully we're giving our characters a good arc and they're learning something and they're doing all of this. So a lot of times in Western romance genre romance, there is what we call, the dark moment, right? That all is lost moment, when our characters are at a fork in the road and they have to either change or accept something that they maybe haven't accepted before, or they have to say, no, I'm going to keep going at the status quo and lose love, right? So I was kind of wondering how y'all approach writing that dark moment. Do you enjoy it? Do you hate it?
face. She loves it. She
does. And I already know the answer for both of you on this. So yeah, but tell me anyway.
I love it. For me, that's the whole point. That's why I go to work in the morning. That's what I do, because I really, really love to just pick that character apart, get right down almost to their DNA before you build them back up, because I think you learn a lot about yourself when you write those moments as much as anything else. And I think it's so important to it's like a marriage. You start a book with two characters, and by the end of the book, they need to be different characters. They need to be different people. They need to have that complete character arc, or I feel like I've failed. And for me, that means absolutely smashing them to smithereens first, because I'm really mean.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And your books read like it. So much. I feel like I also love it. And I think that I love it the most in angstier books. And I've done this series lately that's like more cozy and less angsty, because it was the pandemic and I was like, cuddly.
You are really nice these days. This is
I know. I've been I've been so nice. So don't worry, I'm writing a book now where I'm not nice to them at all. Yeah. But like I love the Black moment, and I think you said it so well. And for me, it's like it's the biggest writerly challenge, because it's something where like you have to set it up, all the pieces that are good, like every it's like a house on stilts, like one of those houses that come up out of the water and they're on these tall stilts. So it's like you have to set up each stilt in the first 2/3 of the book so that they're exactly the ones that when they break, the entire house comes down. But then the house itself, you're like, oh, we'll just move this onto solid ground or whatever. So it's like some things have to break and some can't. And I feel like it's really a challenge to be like, which are the things that I'm going to set up subtly, and then like they will be the linchpins that when I pull them, the whole thing comes down. But like you didn't see it on chapter 2 and be like, oh yeah, well that's going to be so and so's Achilles heel or whatever.
Those little blocks, isn't it? Those little blocks of doom. And then, but once you've toppled that hill, then you get to build it back up again, and that's so much fun. Yes. Much fun. They're like little butterflies, aren't they, coming out at the end? And it just to see a character and to read it, to write it, whatever, but to see a character go from this point in their life when they think this is what I want, this is my motivation, this is what stopped me, and then actually they go through all this journey, and like you say, the house falls down on top of them, and then by the end of it, their motivation is completely different.
Yeah.
What they thought they wanted, maybe they don't, or what what my favorite thing is when someone thinks they're incapable of feeling something. You have this man who thinks he's incapable of loving with his whole heart or whatever, and then you get them all the way to the end of it, and actually they're the most big-hearted, wonderful, gentle giant of a man that you could ever have. And I think taking that moody bastard from the beginning and taking them through this journey, and then by the end of it you've just got this wonderful, warm, loving human being. That is my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
Ugh. Well, and that really does kind of flow, to bring it back to you, Ron, that really does kind of flow into what that experience is. You are at a fork in the road, and you have to let that house shake a little bit. If at the very least you have to let it shake a little bit and be able to come back from that.
Very rare that something's irrevocably broken.
Yeah. I think so too. And I think that there's a dark moment in almost like every genre has its version of that, where it looks like things aren't going to work out. And I love romance so much because, if the dark moment in like a psychological thriller is something that's in that genre, in the payoff in a romance is like, I get to love better. I get to be loved better. And no matter how angsty a book is, there's something so just like, butterflies, like you said, where it's like, we've gone through all of this and love, that was the point, right? Like that's the product that we're attempting to create. And there's something like deeply
hopeful.
Yeah, deeply hopeful about it.
We all need a bit of hope, don't we? And actually, I think it's amazing that we're kind of angst peddlers, but also we can call ourselves the hope doctors as well. So I think that's great.
Agreed.
Totally
Wait, Avery, do you how do you feel about writing them?
Well, I write rom-coms.
I know.
So my books aren't angsty in the least little bit. But even in lighter fare, I think there is still, you still have that dark moment. You still have that all is lost. It just tends to work itself out a lot quicker. So, but
Funny, a complete disaster, can't it?
yeah. So it's a little bit different. I don't know that I particularly love writing it. But I do like when my people realize that they're a dumbass. That I do, quite frankly, very much enjoy writing, as the oh my god, I'm a dumbass moment. I love that realization, not the dark moment so much where they're, you know, I call it the drunk Duke moment when I'm writing my plot outlines, you know, because I grew up reading a lot of Regency romance, and it was always, you know, that's when the Duke went to his study by himself and sat in front of the fireplace and drank a whole bottle of brandy. So to me, that's always the drunk Duke moment, right? So they've had their drunk Duke moment. I love that. Aha, oh my god, I understand what I did wrong and I have to go fix it. I love that. That's my favorite part.
It's redemption, isn't it? In some respects, in
Yep.
many different forms, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what that makes me think of, Avery, is buddy, someone wants to say hi to us.
Oh, double cat episode.
Double cat. You know what that makes me think of is romance. Oh, look, Jaspy.
It's a kitty off.
Friend.
You might punch me in a minute. I'm trying to
Yeah.
animal.
Taking your life in your own hands.
I know. Well, it makes me think of that, like having, even if it's not like a super angsty dark moment, having that moment of realizing that you're an idiot. That is something that I certainly have had. I feel like probably most of us have, but like
For me, love.
Yeah.
But like in so many parts of the world, like avenues of our real life, one of my deepest frustrations in like politics and economy and all this stuff is that people seem constitutionally incapable of ever realizing that they're idiots. Like I feel like so much of our contemporary world is fucked because people are like, an idiot? Me? No, I am beyond reproach. And so I do think that there is something actually quite what's the word, like disruptive.
Cathartic.
Well, I mean, I think disruptive to like a politics where nobody admits that they're being a fucking idiot, to be like, oh no, this is what it looks like for a man with power, like a duke, for example. But anyone who is in a relationship has power over someone because we care if we're loved or not, to be like, oh, this is what it looks like. Let us model what you can do to be like, I am an idiot and here's how I'm going to try to fix it. And for some reason, people think that that's acceptable in romance where they don't in like politics or business or whatever. And I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think what you're saying about people being like terminally unable to admit they're wrong or that they're a dickhead, it comes that state of mind comes with power, I think, because I mean I'm married to the most working class Cockney ever, and where he comes from, you're self-deprecating from the womb.
Right.
You know,
right.
you can't take the piss out of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a real human as far as they're concerned.
Right.
And I think you have this establishment at the top where they have so much power, they have so many resources, so much money. What they lack is they don't have this education, this journey on how to be human and how to laugh at themselves. And I think if you can't laugh at yourself, you're missing the greatest gift in life. Because I find myself hilarious, not on purpose, but you need to laugh. And that, I mean, if you can laugh at yourself, and you can take the piss out of yourself. It's much easier to admit you're just fucking wrong.
Yeah.
You know, you've been doing it since you were born.
Yeah. And that goes back to what you were saying, Garrett, about like showing your kids that you are wrong, modeling how to be wrong, be graceful about it, learn from it and recover. And I think some of those people like didn't grow up, as you were saying, think like seeing any examples of what it looks like to be wrong. And I worry for the next generation who are watching all of these people incapable of ever admitting wrong. Like, how are they going to learn it? I hope they're getting it at home, but
they don't see their parents as wrong. They're also, in some cases, never told that they're wrong.
Right.
And there's a very big difference between being mean to your kids and just telling them you're wrong. You fucked up. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They fix it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you fucked up. Yeah, you shouldn't have said that to that person. You shouldn't have done that to that friend. You shouldn't have, hit that person or whatever. You're wrong. This is how we grow out of that. This this is how we
Right.
pass that. But if you don't have this moment where you're either told you're wrong and you accept it, or you realize for yourself that you're wrong, you don't grow as a person. You stagnate as just this ball of entitled shite that never gets any better. And that's why the world gets stuck, because nobody grows.
I totally agree.
Apart from us, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
So now that we've established that we're better than most people, I'm just
Yeah.
But anyway, so Ron, we think that it's great to make mistakes. We're so glad that you wrote in and hope that anything that we said resonated or is useful for you or your husband. And I would love to hear how things go for you. Please write us back and let us know. I'm deeply invested now, and I need my happily ever after, which could look like you being together or you not being together, but I need to know.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, golly, Garrett, it has been so lovely having you here with us.
I hope I didn't swear too much.
Oh, I mean, I think that was
no.
me. Yeah, definitely not. Do you want to tell everyone listening, like, where can they find you? What is your latest book that they should all definitely go buy?
Oh, yeah.
Find me most places. I'm on TikTok, not very well, but I am there. But I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I am generally just rude to right-wing politicians. That's probably not the best place to find me, because I'm normally being quite, aggressive. But definitely Instagram. Definitely Instagram. I actually got that in a book review once, saying I like the book, but I do not enjoy Garrett Leigh's political stance on Twitter.
Oh,
And
well,
Don't look then.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck off.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find me on all social media. My next book release is with Serena Bowen. It's part of her World of True North project, because I did the first season. I did a book called Heartscape, and we're coming back for a second season. And book number 1 is called Wildfire. It's about a Cockney chef whose humour is very much based on my husband. So you'll probably find Joss quite rude as well. I can't remember if you've met Dan, Rowan. I can't remember. Me and Rowan.
You've sent me video, so I get the vibe.
Yeah, me and Rowan once met at a train station by accident in London. I was like, it's you.
It was the loveliest meet cute, accidental meet cute I've ever experienced.
It was epic. But yeah, Joss has ADHD, which my husband also has, and he's a Cockney and he's a chef. And he comes to Vermont because he's invited to Vermont to open the kitchen at the bar that we introduced in season 1. So a lot of the characters who worked at the bar in season 1 are still there in season 2. Oops, my cat's bum, sorry. And then Joss falls in love with Kai, who's this retired mountain man, because he retired because of an accident. He was a mountain rescue guy. And he's kind of learning how to not be a mountain rescue guy anymore. And he's a carpenter, so he works with his hands a lot. So there's lots of like lumbersexual moments. There's lots of,
lumbersexual. I love that.
Yeah, I need one of those checkerboard cakes, Rowan.
Yes, I will make you one.
I'm sure it will survive from Philly to London.
Yes, no problem.
Courier, it'll be fine. And yeah, so it's actually, although it does have a dark moment, it definitely has a dark moment. It's not as, kind of grittily angsty as the biker series I've been writing up until this book comes out. So for me, it was kind of a little bit of light relief. But I'm not a funny writer, because like I said, I'm not really funny on purpose. If you do find me funny, it's probably an accident. Yeah, I think this book does have some really humorous banter, and I'm really pleased with it. When you've put a book to bed and you've not looked at it for a few months, and then the release time comes, and normally your PA starts putting teasers up, and you're like, that's really funny.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I know what the hell I'm doing. Oh my God. What a shock.
I've had a few moments like that this week where I see teasers and I'm like, actually, this book might be pretty fucking funny in a few places. So yeah. It's out the 8th of September.
All right, tell us the name of it again.
Wildfire.
Wildfire,
yeah, and it's part of Serena Bowen's World of True North series. And then after me, you've got books by Rachel Ember, Leslie McAdam, Laurie Witt. And it's just a fantastic series, and actually all the authors in there, I've read all the books and they're all amazing. So I'm super excited about that.
Awesome. Yay. Well, I can't wait. And listeners, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And Ron, thank you for your letter. If you have a problem that you would like to have us chat about on air, you can go to our website at dearromancewriter.com. There's a form you can fill out that's like anonymous and you can write to us, or you can send us an email at
advice@dearromancewriter.com.
but the big bucks. And yes, or you can hit us up on social media. We would love to get questions from you. Zio will be back with us next week, so tune in.
Well, and I'll be gone.
Oh, and Avery will be gone. Well,
I'll be driving to Texas with a child.
Oh,
so
God.
yay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
College.
Well, Zio and I will be here, and you should come hang out with us. We cannot wait to give you some questionable advice from our trio of happily ever after enthusiasts. Bye,
Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.